Frank McCall sat on a stage in New York City's Lincoln Center, his white hair glistening under the lights overhead. He was still boyish of expression at 66, and smile lines radiated from hazel eyes bright with inquisitiveness. Soon he would be addressing the 1997 graduating class of Stuyvesant High School, where he had taught English for 18 years. He let his mind wander as he gazed out at the great hall. "I've learned so much from kids like this," he thought, "that they gave me much more than I gave them." "You teach," a voice boomed. Frank McCall scanned the adolescents in his classroom. It was the fall of 1970, and his first week of teaching at Seward Park High School, which sat in the midst of dilapidated tenement buildings on Manhattan's Lower East Side. McCall located the speaker and nodded. "You talk funny," the student said. "Where ya from?" "Ireland," McCall replied. With more than 10 years of teaching experience under his belt, this kind of interrogation no longer surprised him, but one question in particular still made him squirm. "Where'd you go to high school?" someone else asked. "If I tell them the truth, they will feel superior to me." McCall thought, "They will throw it in my face." Most of all, he feared an accusation he'd heard before, from himself. "You come from nothing, so you are nothing." But McCall's heart whispered another possibility. Maybe these kids are yearning for a way of figuring out this new teacher. Am I willing to risk being humiliated in the classroom to find out? "Come on, tell us. Where'd you go to high school?" "I never did," McCall replied. "Did you get thrown out?" "I was right," the teacher thought. "They are curious." McCall explained he'd left school after the 8th grade to take a job. How'd you get to be a teacher then?" they asked. "When I came to America," he began, "I dreamed bigger dreams. I loved reading and writing, and teaching was the most exalted profession I could imagine. I was unloading sides of beef down on the docks when I decided enough was enough. By then I'd done a lot of reading on my own, so I persuaded New York University to enroll me." McCall wasn't surprised that this story fascinated his students. There wasn't the kind of poverty McCall had known. They had electricity and food, but he recognized the telltale sign of need in some of his students' threadbare clothes and sensed the bitter shame and hopelessness he knew all too well. If you recounting his own experiences would jolt these kids out of their defeatism so he could teach them something, that's what he would do. A born storyteller, McCall drew from a repertory of accounts about his youth. His students would listen, spellbound by the gritty details, drawn by something more powerful than curiosity. He looked from face to face, recognizing a bit of himself in each sober gaze. Since humor had been the McCall's weapon against life's miseries in Limerick, he used it to describe those days. Dinner usually was bread and tea. He told the students, "Mom, used to say, "We've got our balanced diet, a solid and liquid. What more could we want?" The student roared with laughter. He realized that his honesty was helping forge a link with kids who normally regarded teachers as adversaries. At the same time, the more he talked about his past, the better he understood how it affected him. While at college, a creative writing professor had asked him to describe an object from his childhood. McCord chose the decrepit bed he and his brother had shared. He wrote of their being scratched by the stiff stuffings protruding from the mattress and of ending up jumbled together in the sagging center with fleas leaping all over their bodies. The professor gave McCord and excused him to read the essay to class. "No," McCord said, recoiling at the thought, but for the first time he began to see his sordid childhood without the misery, betrayal, and longing that tormented him still as a worthy topic. "Maybe that's what I was born to put on the page," he thought. While teaching, McCord wrote occasional articles for newspaper and magazine, but his major effort, a memoir of 150 pages that he churned out in 1966, remained unfinished. Now he lived through his students' transcribed essays. They lacked polish, but somehow they worked in a way his writing didn't. "I'm trying to teach these kids to write," he thought, "yet I haven't found the secret myself." The bell rang in the faculty lounge at Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan. When McCord began teaching at the prestigious public high school in 1972, he joked that he finally made it a paradise. Some 13,000 students sought admission each year, competing for approximately 700 vacancies. Part of the fun of working with these bright students was keeping them a few degrees off balance. McCart asked at the beginning of a creative writing class, "What did you have for dinner last night?" The students stared at him as if he'd lost his wits. "Why am I asking this?" "Because you need to become good observers of detail if you are going to write well." As answers trickled in, McCall countered with more questions. "Where did you eat? Who else was there? Who cleaned up afterward?" Student after student revealed families fragmented by divorce and loneliness. "We always argue at the table. We don't eat together." As he listened, McCall mentally catalogued the differences and similarities between his early life and theirs. He began to appreciate more the companionship that enriched the meager meals his mother had struggled to put on the table. That night, McCord lay awake in bed, harvesting the bounty of his chronic insomnia. He visualized himself standing on a street in Limerick and took on imaginary walking about. He looked at shops and pubs, noting their names and peered through their windows. He read street signs and recognized people walking past. Oblivious to time, he wandered the Limerick of his mind, collecting the details of scenery and a cast for the book that festered inside him. Yet, when he later picked up a notebook and tried to set down the previous night's travels, He stopped. McCord knew that he was still holding back. Before he had done it out of respect for his mother, who would have been mortified to see the darkest and most searing episode of his childhood in print. But she had died in 1981, and with her had died his excuse, at least the bits and pieces that burrowed into his consciousness enlivened the stories he told in class. Everyone has a story to tell, he said. Write about what you know with conviction from the heart. Dig deep, he urged. Find your voice and dance your one dance. On Friday, the students read their composition aloud. To draw them out, McCord would read excerpts from his duffel bag full of notebooks. You had such an interesting childhood, Mr. McCord, they said. Why don't you write a book? They drew his one word back at him. It sounds like there's more to that story, dig deeper. McCord was past 50 and painfully aware of the passage of time, but despite his growing frustration at his unfinished book, he never tired of his students' work. These young people have been giving you lessons in courage, he thought. When will you dare as mightily as dare they? It was October 1994. Franklin McCord, now retired, sat down and read his book's new opening, which he had written a few days before and still found satisfying, but many blank pages lay before him. What if I never get it right? He wondered grimly. He stared at the logs glowing in the fireplace and could almost hear students' voices from years past, some angry, some defeated, others confused and seeking guidance. It's no good, Mr. McCord. I don't have what it takes. Then Frank McCord also heard the soothing tones of Franklin McCord's teacher. Of course you do. Dig deeper. Find your one voice and dance your one dance. He scribbled a few lines. I'm in a playground on Classen Avenue in Brooklyn with the brother Malachi. He's two, I'm three. We are on the seesaw. I'm in the innocent voice of an unprotected child who could neither comprehend nor control the world around him. Frank McCord told him tales of poverty and abandonment. In September 1996, Angela's ashes hit bookstores. Within weeks, McCord received an excited call from his agent. His book was getting warm reviews and selling at an unbelievable rate. The most surprising call came on April 7, 1997, when McCord learned that Angela's Ashes had received America's most coveted literary award, the Pulitzer Prize. McCord laid his hands on the lectern, finishing his commencement address at Lincoln Center. Early in my teaching days, the kids asked me the meaning of a poem, he said. I replied, I don't know any more than you do. I have an idea. Why, what are your ideas? I realized then that we are all in the same boat. What does anybody know? No. So when you go forth tonight, fellow students, for I am still one of you, remember that you know nothing. Be excited that your whole life is before you for learning. As he gave them a crooked smile. The students leaped to their feet, waving and whistling. This is too much, he thought,